Alright, so I saw the requests and I will answer them now. The A6M2 Rekaisen Zero. One of the aircraft that dominated the Pacific in early theater and was a complete force to be reckoned with, serving throughout World War II. From the opening days of the Imperial Japanese invasion all the way up to the final moments of the IJN and IJA. It was an aircraft that truly was a marvel to engineers, as it was one of the most maneuverable aircraft of the whole war. The Zero had an outstanding armament of 2 Type 99 machine guns and 2 cannons in its wing. This meant the Zero could also dish out some serious damage to enemy aircraft. The Zero also had a very important role of protecting carriers and was one of the best naval fighters, as its arrestor wire gave it the ability to have carrier and land operations, something not many other aircraft could do. The Zero was also one of the fighters that, to most other engineers, seemed like something that was out of the question, to sacrifice armor for maneuverability, as when fighting aircraft like the F-4 Wildcat, the Wildcat stood no chance against the A6M, as it was way too maneuverable for the F-4F to ever keep up with. This made sure that the Zero would dominate the Pacific for the first couple of years, until the Americans came up with the F6 Hellcat, brought the Zero to its end of fame. The Zero also could carry a 250-pound bomb and a 500-pound or 2 smaller 60-pound bombs on the wing. And one of the most outstanding feats of the Zero was its extremely fast speeds and also crazily fast turn rates. Even though it had no armor, it had the ability to maneuver out of almost every situation that it came into. But as you can see, its armor was extremely weak, meaning if it even was to be lightly grazed by enemy aircraft fire, it would turn into a firecracker on the 4th of July. But the Japanese were suited to make sure that this problem wouldn't be majorly affect the Zero's performance. Now, even though in the later years of the war, the Zero would eventually become obsolete, other variants would soon follow. For example, the A6M3 Zero. The A6M3 would dominate even against the American F6F Hellcat. And the A6M2 had an impressive kill-to-death ratio. But later in the war, the Japanese were realizing that the fortunes weren't too good for them, and they finally realized, okay, we have to do something. Another problem, though, is that the Zero was prone to do something called flat spinning, which is when the aircraft would go into an uncontrollable spin that could not be stopped. The Japanese Zero also had an impressive... Okay, my grammar is kind of sucky right now, so please excuse me for any sort of grammatical spelling errors, as I'm currently having extreme brain damage. It had an impressive operational range of about 2,050 miles, meaning the Zero theoretically could cross the entire Pacific and back. Of course, with some stops. But the Zero would also escort bombers on their trip to Pearl Harbor, as shown here. The Zero was an aircraft that was not to be underestimated at any circumstances. Also, the Zero had an impressive feat when it came up against fighting bombers. The Zero's pivotal role in the Pacific for the IJN would state that the Zero was to be one of the main fighters of the Imperial Japanese Empire. And the opening days in the Pacific would show that it would stay there for the entire war. And also it had a pivotal role in shooting down bombers in the early war stages. As you can see here, its two cannons made it very good and ensured that no bomber would be touching Japanese carriers. And as such, this would earn the Zero the title of one of the best aircraft of the Second World War. Not only this, but it would also make sure that the Zero would stay an icon, even years after its service in the Second World War. But later on, as the closing days of the IJ of the Imperial Japanese Empire were apparent, it was seen that Japan had one last resort, the kamikaze. This would be when Japanese planes would deliberately fly themselves into American warships, but as shown, most of the time would never actually make it to their target, majority of the time being shot down. It was realized that the Zero would later on be an aircraft that most Japanese pilots would associate themselves to. An aircraft that would remain a king of the skies. But enough history about the Zero. I'm also going to do a thing now where I review its actual in-game skills. The in-game A6M2 Zero, non-premium, is still an absolutely outstanding aircraft, having immense maneuverability, great armament, and the ability to take down bombers with absolute ease. And in all honesty, for all new